situation is under control.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Today we are looking at the München, the brand new Tier 7 premium German light cruiser. The München was supposed to be an M-class cruiser, and the M-class was part of Plan Z, because the Germans do like their letters and numbers. But the idea behind these things was that they were supposed to be a successor to, I think it was the Leipzig class, where the Nürnberg was as well, so the predecessors of these things. They were supposed to be commerce raider scouts. So the idea was to make a light cruiser that was very, very fast, had a very long range. And by range, you don't just consider the amount of fuel that you can keep in the ship and, well, the amount of speed and endurance that the engines and everything else can dish out, but you also have to consider things like the crew quarters. Because if you're at sea for extended periods of times, you need to store more food, you need to have, potentially slightly better quarters and everything to keep everybody up. She was also supposed to have 150mm guns and a good enough armor that she could withstand 150mm fire from enemy ships. And then the general idea was to, use her superior speed and range and endurance to scout enemy convoys for the larger commerce raiders, like pocket battleships and everything else that had slightly larger guns to, catch up and do away with what they couldn't mop up themselves. Now, the problem, this all sounds very good on paper. The problem is that usually if you're considering speed, endurance, armor, and firepower, you can't have all of them because it does get tricky. So after they've tried that for a while, this is still an interboard design, so after they've tried that for a while, they eventually realized that, this doesn't quite work out as we think it should. So they did end up instead of taking the triple turret 150 mils that they had from the Nürnberg, from the Leipzig class, from the preceding one, and instead they used the guns that they would effectively have used as secondaries on the major battleships, and invented a even more lightweight twin turret in order to reduce the weight, because that was one of the major issues. Armor would have been paper thin. I think we're talking about 50mm at max here at some places. And in all, a lot of compromise. I think the crew quarters were not particularly great, and it was a very compromised design. They did manage to put down the keel for two of them, but that's about as far as they got, and then they just gave up on it and scrapped that again. Which brings us to the game. So let's have a look around and see what we can actually see here. Let's have a look at some statistics. Now this is a Tier 7, which makes sense because the Nürnberg at Tier 6 is the predecessor, so this would be the Tier 7. So let's start out with the logical comparison of the München. München, by the way, is Munich, whereas Nürnberg is Nuremberg. Just so you know, right? Two cities southern part of Germany. And let's compare these two. Okay, so the first thing that kind of stands out is that she gets the mines treatment of the premium cruisers, and actually gets a rapid reload instead of the precise aim. She gets a better hydro, and she gets a defensive AA. Now that also was sort of an idea, that these things have pretty good AA. In practice, while they had a lot of it, it wasn't all that great. But once again, different story. Statistics-wise, so this is definitely not the Nürnberg class. This was a different class. I'm going to have to look it up. I think it was Leipzig class, but I'll check it. She does get a little bit more hit points, but that's about it. Other than that, exactly same armor or lack thereof. So if you've ever played the Nürnberg, you know what I'm talking about. She is proper fast with 35 knots, but doesn't quite have the Nürnberg's maneuverability. The guns, you only get 8 of them instead of 9 in a more traditional 2 forward, 2 aft layout. But they are fast with 6.5 seconds base reload, and have a marginally better range, although they don't hit quite as hard on the armor piercing as the Nürnbergs, but they are very, very comparable. We've lost some torpedo tubes, so instead of 4 triple launches, we get 2 quads, and they are just your standard German torpedoes, 5.4 kilometer base range. They do reload a bit slower than on the Nürnberg. The AA is a bit better, although the small caliber AA on the large caliber AA on the Nürnberg is actually still better than this one. Oh, we have a bit better range, but this is not an AA ship, so don't let the defensive AA fool you. Even if you come under relatively concentrated air attack, you're not going to shoot down more than like 5 or 6 planes or so. So this is not a ship that can by herself. This is tier 7, right? We're up against Kagas. This is not a ship that by herself can stand up against carrier strikes. So, if this would stop, honestly, the sheer amount of pop-ups is starting to get on my nerves here. This is why I've started the game 5 minutes ago, and this is probably the 6th pop-up that has been thrown in my face. I'm gonna have to complain. I'm gonna have to write a strongly worded letter about this one. All right, let's compare it to the York, because on the tech tree line we actually start seeing heavy cruisers at tier 7. All right, so München versus York. The York obviously being, well, no one's gonna accuse the York of being particularly well armored. That kind of starts with the Hipper, but we definitely don't have the extreme squishiness of the Nürnbergs anymore. The York obviously being a heavy cruiser, been not quite near there in the maneuverability, although interestingly enough they have the same turn time on the rudder, and the York gets the somewhat obscure 210mm guns, so obviously longer reload but more damage, and the excellent HE shells that you'd never see again on the German line. And also the York retains the Nürnberg's 12 torpedoes rather than the 8 that you get on the München. York has probably similar AA, I would say, but worse concealment. So where does that put us with this ship? Well, I think the promo pop-up that I might have just rage closed here was talking about a destroyer hunter. And that's not completely wrong, although I wouldn't say that that's her prime purpose, because a destroyer hunter needs a bit more than just very good guns against destroyers. Well, we'll get into that. So equipment-wise, I have actually put main battery mode 2 for faster reload, which is kind of what I tend to do on mid-tier German cruisers. I have actually the propulsion mod here instead of double steering. I have double steering on the Nürnberg and on the York, because the rudder shift is a bit on the sluggish side. But yeah, there's a difference here, and again I'll get to that in a moment when we talk about playstyles. For the commander skills, I've got underwater protection. I have the battlefield support because she does get both hydro and AA, defensive AA. The air defense expert skill is arguable that you could use it, but there's not a huge amount of effect. I mean, it does make a difference, but once again, you can't defend yourself on your own against incoming carrier strikes. Artillery maintenance, fire supremacy for an additional rapid reload. I've got the recon, so it's a full utility setup, fully prepared, and eventually you want the master reloader skill, obviously, for a longer rapid reload. Now, it's a rapid reload 1, and you've got a 6.5 second base reload already. So what does it do? 15%, yeah. It's gonna lower it down to 6 seconds or something, or just under 6. So it's not a massive difference, but it's still good to have in a pinch. So playstyle wise, now the Nürnberg. Let's talk very briefly about the Nürnberg. The Nürnberg was an absolutely excellent ship at tier 6, and that is mostly down to the fact that she was effectively, well, more of a destroyer almost, with really, really good guns. And it was tier 6, which means you get into tier 5 battles, and a lot of people in tier 6 haven't learned yet how to, that other ships have torpedoes. A lot of people don't know how to deal with, don't know that they can steer their battleship left or right, and they think they just go forward. That sort of stuff, that you can exploit to great effect. And of course, if you see a destroyer and you're in the Nürnberg, you've got these really, really excellent guns. The München, with one gun less effectively, with 8 guns, but a much faster reload, is a tier 7 ship, which means she gets into tier 8 games. And if you've ever played the what's it called, the unbalanced kind of things where we had tier 6 versus tier 8, if you're in a tier 6 light cruiser, and tier 6 light cruisers are notoriously squishy, and you're faced with something like a Richelieu, these things can one-shot a full health tier 6 light cruiser. And this is effectively a tier 6 light cruiser, only in tier 7 with a faster reload. So you have a slightly better damage output with the ship on the guns, but you don't have in any way anything that allows you to be, careless with your positioning or your armor. Probably one ship that would be interesting to compare would be the Shores. Let's quickly bring the Shores into here, just for the comparison, and do München versus Shores, because that's another tier 7 light cruiser. And the Shores gets more hit points, but a comparable armor plating. So if you've played the Shores, then you kind of know what to expect. The difference obviously being that the Shores gets 12 guns and a 6% fire chance, whereas the München gets the German guns, which only have a 4% fire chance, but in return have the better armor piercing. So I would say the playstyle. Now, how do I get back to that? I put the Germans out, that's why. The playstyle is, I'd say, somewhat similar to how you would play a Soviet light cruiser. You have to stay at range most of the time. You've got to be really careful with your positioning. And you got to kite HE spam, or if you got something that you can engage, you got to be really, really careful about it, because you absolutely, positively don't have any armor. So any kind of shell fire is extremely poisonous to these sort of ships. Plus, the München has even less armor than has even less hit points than the Shores. Lastly, what else can we look at? You can get a little bit more hit points, a little bit more AA, a little bit more traverse, which is not a terrible choice. Or you can use the elite gun operator, which gives you better guns, which I have obviously gone with. So that gets us down to no armor. Well, this is effectively destroyer armor. There are destroyers out there that probably have comparable armor here. She's got 5.99 second base reload on these 850 mils. And while you don't get the precise aiming, they are pretty good. These are good guns. The last thing we have to look at is the camo. You can get the historical camo, which gives you much needed hit points, range, torpedo speed. Interesting, because usually it's torpedo range to 5.6 odd. Here it's torpedo speed, which isn't going to make a huge amount of difference. Honestly, you're not going to use your torpedoes much. The torpedoes are really more deterrent against destroyers rushing you. And your main weapons are your guns. These are gunboats. These are not torpedo boats. You also don't have the amount of torpedoes necessary to be an effective torpedo boat, unless you're playing in a tier 6 game against battleships that haven't yet found out the WASD hacks. So it's good, but it's not a must, I'd say, to have that historical camo. All right, let's get into some gameplay and see her in action. In the first game, we're playing Domination on Strait, and we're top tier. So it's Gneisenau, Fuso, New Mexico, Galissonière, Pensacola, Lebrecht, Mars, and Westeros. If you're top tier, you can often be a little bit more relaxed about things. And in general, I play this ship a lot more like I would play, let's say, a Soviet light cruiser or even an American light cruiser in terms of a support ship. She's not an aggressive ship per se. She is very, very quick. She has that in common as well with the Soviet light cruisers. So I'm gonna head over to BCAP. Fuso, okay, if you want to. All right, okay. I was planning to head over to BCAP, but my team seems to be decided, and I am top tier here, so I can given that the Fushun only has deep water torps, and if she runs into something like the Lebrecht Mars, then it's not going to look too great. So I'm going to help out. Around here. Now Pensacola. It's the Westeros. Okay, but I can actually start making myself useful here and just taking that thing under fire. You have to be careful with and keep your eye on things like Pensacola's, because these 203mm shells can make your life very, very short. So right now we're just deterring the Westeros. Fushun, bless your soul. These are deep water torps. They're not going to work against the Westeros. Oh well. Okay, so these are the Westeros torps. Enemy has taken the cap, as is expected. Fushun seems to have enough of this. But Fuso is here, and I'm going to leave the Pensacola for the Fushun, for the Fuso. Although the 150mm AP in traditional German fashion is actually very, very good. But my job right now is to deal with the Westeros over there. And I think that's the Fushun shooting at him from over there. Okay, I got him. All good. And was it the Fuso? I'm not sure. Someone was shooting at him from all the way over there. But the Fushun has wisely buggered off to B-Cap and is playing around. So now I've got a Pensacola to deal with. Now, as I mentioned, Pensacola is a problem. So you cannot just give broadside because she can take a lot of your health off. The thing is, it's a Pensacola. It's not particularly well armored as well. So I can do that also if I can hit her to a Pensacola. And do a whopping almost 900 points of damage with a 150mm Citadel. But yeah, you want to keep your distance. You want to use your you want to resist the temptation to get all your guns on target, even though they are doing a very, very nice amount of damage. And you don't want to get into brawls where you can get blapped in the sides by anything that has larger guns. So be mindful of your extremely low health pool. Once again, rapid reload up, and we can just spit out the fire. At this range, the 150s start dropping off a little bit, but we can still Citadel the Pensacola from this direction. And the Fuso takes him out. So now over to the high explosive. If 4% fire chance isn't grand, but at long range, when you can't reliably target battleship weak spots, it's probably the better choice. So once again, there comes the New Mexico, so we're putting her in reverse, but the New Mexico seems to be shooting at the Fuso. If it wasn't for the Gneisenau, I would have torpedo rushed the New Mexico, because he's not paying any attention, but there's a Gneisenau right there. And if I get myself into torpedo range of that New Mexico, then the Gneisenau can just delete me. So I'm going to have to be very careful here, and I'm just going to keep my distance and rain high explosive down. But yeah, the Fuso takes out the New Mexico as well. Well done. That leaves the Gneisenau. So now we can actually start carefully moving forward, and just to make sure we stay out of the secondary range of the Gneisenau, because I am effectively what happens if you take all the Gneisenau secondaries, put them on a ship, and call it a cruiser. Well, a couple more than that. But we've lost only one ship so far. I think that was the unfortunate Fushun early on. And I think we are probably having this in the bag. So now I can actually move in a little bit more aggressively and just chase after the Gneisenau. Now, of course, the Gneisenau is not a slow ship by any means whatsoever. But I can just run after him and try to get a fire set. The Fuso has more fun in that regard, with the Gneisenau who's running away instead of rushing us. But yeah, this is effectively kind of the role you want to play. You want to be extremely careful not to give broadside. And oh, Leberecht Mars, that's a good target for me. And yeah, mostly keep your distance unless you're dealing with things like destroyers. And so back over to the armor piercing, and let's say hello to the Leberecht Mars, because I think he's not paying any attention either. So let's get the shots out. And yeah, there you can see what you can do with these German 150 mils. It's the same story as in the Nürnberg, only that you get a much faster reload. So we'll get some torps out. But yeah, I think the Belfast takes him out, and he's already dead. That leaves that. All right, how did we do? 44,000 points, not terrible. Fuso actually takes the MVP, and was a good defense down after we've taken care of the Westeros, which was probably the most dangerous, the biggest danger to our Fuso, and the rest was just kind of mopping up. So how about if you end up being bottom tier? In the second battle, it's a carrier game, and we've got Chicago, Kansas, Colorado, Miyoko, Atlanta, Asashio, and Nakatsuki, which I think is a bot, so we don't count him. But you can do things like Cap Rush, so I can definitely play the destroyer role to a degree, and actually get myself into C-Cap. I am switching over to the armor piercing by default, just because like don't be confused with the standard load of high explosive on the 150s. Against battleships at range, yes. Against everything else, you want to fire the armor piercing, and if you get Do we have an AFK Akatsuki? No, we don't. Okay, he woke up. Good morning. Welcome to the battle. Yeah, if you've got anything else, in front of your guns, the armor piercing is mostly the better choice. Even against battleships, if you can target bows or sterns, it is. Or if you are just generally at close range, these are just very, very good 150s in general. So, enemy team takes A and B. We're taking C, and this is about as far as I want to go right now. There is a destroyer. I think it's the bot, but okay, I'm going to start opening up at this guy and just see if we can help out getting that out of the way, because they tend to distract people. But there's also the Asashio, so there are probably torpedoes in the water. Hydro up, and let's start lighting up the Asashio and make sure that he buggers off. And you don't get the elevation that you have on something like an American light cruiser. There's Atlanta over there. So we just want to make sure Asashio doesn't get anything done. Okay, he seems to be sitting behind the island. So now it's time to light up the Atlanta, and the Atlanta is obviously shooting back at me. Now, I am reasonably far away from the battleships, but I do need to keep an eye because I am angling against Atlanta. And I mean, Atlanta is firing high explosive, but Atlanta has a lot of rapid firing guns. So, and I don't have an awful lot of health to deal with, so I do have to be careful about crossfire from the battleships from somewhere in the center here. Asashio makes a move, maybe. Carrier is coming in as well, but I am trying to keep the Atlanta away from our Akatsuki, who probably could have fun. Would have been great if he was just going B-cap instead of trying to chase down an Atlanta, but yeah, this is what I'm talking about. That was a battleship salvo that just took half my health off. Coming from completely halfway across the map. And but I have different problems. I've got the carrier coming in, and I've got the Asashio out, who's probably going to get torpedoes away. So once again, we're going to try and get ourselves into cover, because there's something battleshipy over there that's looking my way, and I don't like that. And the carrier is coming in as well. So one more blind shot out at the Asashio. Watch out for the Atlanta, but Atlanta has our destroyer to play with, so he's momentarily distracted. There's some planes coming in. I have the defensive AA, but it's currently on cooldown. But yeah, Atlanta is shooting at me again. Just being careful that the carrier isn't dropping me, because I am on 10,000 hit points, so I'm probably a one-shot kill for the carrier at this point. So just dodging the Atlanta shots, and all the meanwhile trying to inflict some pain in return. But at this range, we are pretty evenly matched, I'd say. I do have some battleship backup now, finally, though. We're still only holding one cap, so we're going to have to do something about that. There's the carrier coming in again. There's a Miyoko, and I'm once again in a precarious position. But I think the Asashio is making a move. The carrier is dropping me, obviously. Friendly carrier gives fighter support. Thank you very much. Defensive AA up against the second dive bomber drop, and one much-needed heal. Asashio is coming out, thinking that maybe I'm distracted, but I've been paying attention. So that's a dead Asashio. Full reverse, turn in. These torps are going to miss, and I don't need a Hydro for that. Atlanta is back again, it's trying to kill me. But the Asashio is out of the way, so we're just going to tuck ourselves in behind the island as much as possible and try to dodge the Atlanta fire. There's a Miyoko on my right, battleships in front, but we are coming... that's the Miyoko. No, I don't have time to burn right now. I don't have the health for it. I only have 6,000 hit points left. And there's a Kansas over there. Well, fortunately, he doesn't seem to be looking at me, but I have to take care that the carrier isn't torpedo dropping me. But it looks like the carrier is not interested in me. He's going for the battleships. So AP out, switch to HE. And I'll just take down these fighters and help with that as much as possible. And then try to light up the Kansas and get some fire set over there. It is a 4% fire chance, so oftentimes it's good to get a good strategy is to get a single fire going, get them to Damacon. And the Atlanta is back and it's trying to kill me. This Atlanta is really, really trying to kill me. And see, if you mind, could you do something? Yeah, try to get a single fire set, then pop the rapid reload. But with a 4% chance, it's not a great. It's not a great chance. So oftentimes you're just doing what I'm doing and shooting at an American battleship for a minute straight, and you're just not getting any fires. So sometimes RNG just says nope. But finally, heal comes off cooldown, so some health back. The NC is being very nice and providing a meat shield for me. Not just in physical being in the way. because the Atlanta is still trying to kill me. But if there's a ship in front of you, it means that you're very difficult to target with the lock-on. So I'm just tucking myself in here behind the island. I still get my rear turrets across, but I'm unspotted, and the Atlanta can't shoot me anymore. Okay, Mines takes out the Kansas. Well done, Mines. Atlanta is... I'm going to have to do something about this Atlanta. Our destroyer has been trying to kill this guy for the last 5 minutes flat out, and he's still alive. I mean, it's an Atlanta, of course he is. But this guy's been trying to kill me for the last 5 minutes flat as well. So let's see if we can return the favor. I don't want to poke my nose out, but these ledges here are extremely useful in that you can sit behind them without being spotted and get some precise target on fire. And even at this range, I can hurt an Atlanta pretty badly, because Atlanta doesn't have any armor either. And I've got the armor piercing loaded, so it should be 1 or 2 more salvos. Come on, let's kill this guy. I mean, we're down to, it's just 1 more ship. So, okay, that should be the end of the Atlanta. And yeah, there it goes. Okay, I won that engagement. Mines comes around to help out. There's Colorado. Can't see me right now, so I'm gonna see if I can get some shots. I can get some shots over, but that thing's already dead. Indomitable takes him out, so... Well done, everyone. Yeah, so you can still be useful to your team, and you just have to be having absolutely your head on a swivel and be very, very careful, because well-aimed battleship salvos can just end you from halfway across the map, and you don't even know what's going on. So where did we come in the team? We still come second in the team, just behind the Mines. So that's not terrible. Yeah, the München. It's an interesting ship. It's not your more traditional German playstyle of rush and hit hard. Now the main you could say, well, the Mainz can do that. Yes, but the Mainz has got an Admiral Hipper hull. The München has a Nuremberg hull, pretty much. That's the big difference, right? And the Mainz has a lot more torpedoes than I do. So play her a lot more like you would a Soviet light cruiser. Play her like a Shores, and I think you'd have some good effect with this thing. She doesn't quite get the fire chance on the HE, so sometimes you'll just be frustrated by it, but it can work. In return, you get the excellent German 150mm armor piercing. Plus, you have a hydro, so destroyers are not going to be easily torpedoing you, hopefully. And when you're going hunting destroyers, just be careful not to expose any broadside to anything that has larger than 150mm guns. And even 150s at tier 7, like if you get shot at by a Shores, you're not going to enjoy that either. Because while you can citadel things, they can citadel you as well with armor piercing. So that's what the ship is. Interesting addition, different playstyle from the general German line of cruisers, but not a monstrously powerful ship, but definitely an interesting ship to have. So there you go. That's it. Anyway, thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.